You're listening to Stand Tall and Own It, the podcast for high-performing female leaders who are ready to make an impact by discovering the safety that comes from understanding their own value and exercising their own authority. I'm your host, Andrea Johnson, and I'm here to tell you it is time to just truly be you, my strong friend. It's time to stand tall and own it. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Stand Tall and Own It. I'm your host, Andrea Johnson. Do you ever feel guilty about the things that you're just not good at? How about the things that you know are just not your strengths? I personally struggle with this all the time. I really wish I was good at following through. I really wish I could just cheerlead people all day long. But that's one of the reasons I left corporate America. I can't do that. It exhausts me. It drains my energy. Today's guest is for you if you are looking for a way to not feel guilty about the things that you're not strong in, but to feel empowered about the things that you are strong in. I have a friend and fellow coach and trainer named Charity Medina today. Charity is a seasoned operations HR leader, and because of that, she gets it. She knows what it's like to feel really empowered in one area and really guilty in another area. She spent her career at the intersection of people and processes. And today we are going to talk about the fact that in 2021, she became a Certified Working Genius Facilitator. Have you ever heard of Working Genius? It is put together by Patrick Lencioni, and she introduces his framework that transforms teams using this simple yet profound method. It's her passion to see people working in their individual zones of genius and thriving in their everyday work and lives. As an organizational health consultant, love that term, organizational health, and we'll talk about that. You'll hear us talk about that in just a minute. Charity is on a mission to help transform cultures from dysfunctional to healthy and smart. So if you have any questions about how do I become more empowered in the fact that I'm really good at this part of processes and really terrible at that part of processes, but yet I have to do them all, not only will the Working Genius and understanding the Working Genius help you see what those pieces are and give you permission, like we talked about a few weeks ago on the podcast, give you permission to be yourself, but it'll also help you understand how you work within a team. I cannot wait for you to meet her. Here is Charity Medina. Hey, Charity, I am so excited you're here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Andrea. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. I have already given our listeners a brief introduction as to who you are and how I know you and what you do. But why don't you give us a little bit of your story and how that brought you into being the exact type of coach and consultant and trainer that you are right now?
Sure. So, quick story with me. I love a conference called the Global Leadership Summit and been attending that for several years. And I learned about Working Genius several years back. And at that point, I was like, this is such a great framework. And so I dove all in and went through a certification process. And during that, I realized, wow, I finally had a label or a name for the passion that I had inside of me for so many years. I was always such an advocate for making sure that work was a place where people felt seen and they were just doing work that really matched up with their unique skills. And so I like to share that I learned about Working Genius through the Global Leadership Summit and became a certified facilitator. And I found my tribe of people that practice organizational health full time. And so I dove all in about a year ago and started my own firm.
So you call it organizational health.
Correct.
Tell us what that means.
Yeah.
Because most people, I'm just going to say, as a coach and as somebody who's been in different big organizations and worked with small organizations, that is a very nebulous sounding term. What does that mean?
Yeah. And so thanks for asking that, because a lot of times I ask people, have you ever heard of what organizational health means? And it's all about working about the culture with your teams within your organization. And so we talk about a smart side and a healthy side, and we want to focus on the healthy side, whereas a lot of people think about smart, which is what are your analytics? Do you have a good tech stack? Just hard measurables, whereas the healthy side are more softer things of, hey, what's your morale like? What's turnover like? Is there politics? Is there a lot of confusion? And so all of that is what we try to do on the org health side, is to work on those levers. And in the end, it helps you also be smart, because when people are just like really feeling passionate about their work, they're going to do
Mm.
great work for you and results are going to go up in your company.
So the reality is we have a very, and this is why we work well together. We have very similar missions, but we go about them in very different ways, which I think is one of the beauties of Working Genius. And I heard about Working Genius when I went to a Live to Lead with my Monique Minnick with my mentor, and it was a new thing that the creator of Working Genius was sharing with the Maxwell team. And of course, we took the assessment and it made so much sense. I was like, oh, well, of course, now I understand. And one of the things that I love about doing all these different assessments is that they each give me a little puzzle piece as to kind of why I function the way I do in a team or by myself, and why things didn't work in the past and do work now in different areas. And also almost gave me permission to just like one more piece of permission to be myself. Do you find that other people speak that way?
So once we dive through the results with people, a lot of times we call them their aha moments. And some people just needed that permission or an assessment result on a piece of paper to actually internalize and say, wow, this is truly how I'm gifted, and feel confident in who they are. So I find people are either more empowered when they find out what the results are and we go through it. And then also, other people, we remind them to just shed the guilt of what your frustration might be. We'll dive into what the model is, but on the frustration side, it's not a weakness. And so we just want to remind people that if you're not a detailed person, there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean it's a weakness.
Woohoo!
don't
Yay!
don't feel bad.
I love that shed the guilt part. I'm all about shedding the guilt. So for anybody who hasn't, because I'm going to say there are plenty of people out there, and it's probably likely that many people listening to this podcast do not know what the Working Genius model is.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing. One of my clients this last year comes on to one of our coaching calls and says, I did this new assessment and it really makes so much sense. And I want to figure out a way to use it here, but I don't think that they'll pull in any more, people to work with us. And it's called Working Genius. I'm like, seriously, you just went out and found it? So it is possible to just stumble upon it. And she went out and found it. And it kind of, even without someone explaining it to her, the tool gave her by itself so much information that helped her kind of work. As I'm working with her, I'm like, oh my gosh. So let me tell you how this can work together with what you already know. And she found that not only did it help her solidify and validate her strengths, but it also helped her understand, okay, so I don't need to feel guilty about these things. And I think it might even give her permission to move into a different kind of industry. So, and not like immediately, but it's very real. So for those who have never heard of it, can you give us like the basics?
Sure, I'd love to. So, Working Genius was built out of the Pat Lencioni is the one who developed this model, and he would go to work, and things would be great, and then all of a sudden, sometimes things just crash and burn, and he was wondering why are things so great at work, and then all of a sudden it's just so frustrating and so hard, and I lose all my energy. And so this framework was built out of that to really understand how we operate at work and what each person's part is. And so we call it the working genius, and there are six different geniuses. And it spells the word widget, which helps you remember each of these geniuses. So WIDGET. And each person, if you think about it, of a two, two, and two approach, you're going to have two geniuses, two competencies, and two frustrations. The geniuses are the things that fill you up. You're so passionate about it. You just love doing this type of work, and you can do it for hours on end. Your competencies are things that you kind of don't have strong feelings either way, and you can do it. And then the frustrations are truly those things that it just takes so much energy. You feel so depleted most of the time doing that type of work. And so people can have letters anywhere. It doesn't matter what your combination is. And so wonder is the high level thinking, the people that kind of are going to kick off any type of work. They ask a lot of questions and ponder. Invention are those that come up with new ideas. They just are always able to just come up with things out of nothing and come up with new solutions. And then we move to the WID. Discernment is someone who has this great gut feeling or intuition. They can evaluate ideas and truly give their feedback on a whole array of types of subjects and different industries. And so that is what discernment is all about, is kind of helping vet ideas and come up with the right approach to take. And then after you come up with that, you move into galvanizing, which is getting everyone on board, letting them understand the why behind this and getting people excited for the work that is going to happen. And so galvanizing is the G. And then you move into enablement, which is all about people that get so much joy and energy just helping other people. And helping other people can look different. Helping people can look like, hey, just give me that off your plate, I'll do that for you. Helping can look like, let me get you a piece of software, let me get you whatever you need. Let me get you some training to help you do this. And then finally, we move into T, which is tenacity. And that is all about getting the project, the work over the finish line. And so people with the tenacity genius are really into, the details. Are we doing what we said we were going to do? And is this on time? And so those are the 6 different geniuses. And this is work that happens at your job or even at home, because we do work at
Mm.
home as well. So that's what's beautiful about the model, is you can think about it with your home life or at work.
So, isn't there a book? Pat, is there a book on
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
genius? And I know Patrick Lencioni has at least 2, maybe 3 podcasts. So there's plenty of ways to find information on this. And we're going to talk in a little while about how people can get in touch with you as far as working with you about it. But let's kind of look at, I'm sure if y'all are watching YouTube, you watched me make a couple of faces in some of these which sometimes my face is an open book. And and I have a hard time sometimes hiding the parts that are my working frustrations, because, like you said, I think, are taught that the things that we're not good at, those are the things that we are supposed to focus on and get better at. And I understand where that comes from. It's kind of like we want to be well-rounded. And in several assessments that I work with that I will also explore. One of them we've already looked at is DISC, and we talk about strengths in there. We're going to look at the Enneagram. We're going to look at this one. We're looking at human design. All these different things that all of them point out Clifton Strengths. Even they point out what your strengths are, and they all encourage you to play to your strengths. Every single one of them. And so when people just starting off say, but for me, my tenacity is a working frustration. It is really hard for me to get things across the finish line. Why shouldn't I feel guilty about that? What do you say to people when that
Yeah.
they already feel guilty about those things that they're not strengthened?
Yeah. We like to reinforce as part of this framework that you're going to bring your best self to your organization when you're doing work that really fuels you, that you're passionate about, that gives you energy. And most of the time, you always are pretty good at it. You have great skill in it. And so we want you to focus there. We say, can you at least be 51% in your genius in the work that you do? And to your point, I've had people who I debrief them on the results and they feel like, oh, they're walking away. They're like, oh, I want to improve my frustration. And I said, no, that's not what we're trying to do here. You want to be aware of the work that you're doing in your frustration. You want to live in your genius, and we'll give you some tools and some ideas. And so a lot of times I give people some hacks of, when you have to do that work in your frustration, this is what we recommend. So we recommend that you do work in your frustration when you have your most energy. Are you a morning person, evening
Mm,
person, afternoon? What is that? Is there a way, is there an environment that helps you? I tell people, for me, invention is my frustration. So I get out of my office, walk around my neighborhood, call somebody. I need to get in a whole new environment and have somebody that helps me come up with ideas. Other people, hey, can you say, if I when I get this work, set a timer, or you go get your favorite beverage or snacks or something to kind of just make sure that you get through it. Or just grabbing someone else to say, hey, let's go do our expense reports together, let's just sit in the same room and do that. If you don't like, I use that example a lot for tenacity. Some people hate expense reports. Or I tell people, I had a friend who we would swap. People tell me, hey, Charity, can you create a deck for us, like a presentation for clients? Like, it's really hard for me if you give me nothing, literally say, go build something from scratch.
mm, hmm.
I need something to start with. Whereas I have a friend who doesn't like expense reports. I'm like, give me your stuff, I'll do expense reports, can you start my deck? And we just like swap work like that. And so I joke with people, there's so many creative ways that you can find out of when you have to work in your frustration, which you have to, you likely are never going to have a job where you're 100% in your genius at all times. We're
Mm.
adults and we have to, pay bills and do things like that. And so figuring out how you can best show up to do that work in your frustration.
I don't know, maybe it's my age and because I'm a coach and because I've done so many different types of personality typing, right? It's like, um, I have friends who laugh at me. When I told my podcast producer, my best friend, I said, I want to do this whole series on to type or not to type. Like, that is the question. What are these? And she just busted out laughing. She goes, of course you do. And it's just because my top genius is wonder.
Hmm.
And so for me to ask the questions consistently and to pull out the all the different nuances and the layers and to put it all together, I find that always up for taking a new test, right? It's like because I feel like that's going to give me like one more layer to help me understand me and to show up best. And I truly felt freedom and relief, and I still do when I take any of these and it's like these are your strengths and these are not. It's like yes. It's like that gives me so much freedom to not worry about it. Like I'm literally after the next thing I'm going to be doing today is co-working
Hmm.
because I need to get some things done. And tenacity is at the very bottom of my working
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah.
And so when you're sitting there giving examples, and so maybe we could do that. We could walk through mine really quickly
Sure.
to
Hmm.
just give people an example of what it sounds like. And if you know me at all, you'll listen to it and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's totally you.
Yeah.
And we can talk about how I use it at home too, because
Sure.
I love that you said that. So you've given me mine. I
I,
have it open.
yeah.
And it was not a surprise for me at all to find out that wonder was my top one. Now, when you say two, two, and two, does it really come out two, two, and two, or is there really like one, two, three, four, five, six?
So we just say you have two in each area, two geniuses, two competencies, and two frustrations. And
Okay.
when you have your results, they are ranked as far as, what gives you the most joy and energy
Mhm.
down to the lowest one that drains you. So it is a ranking. We don't have a score for each of them. And so you just have the six ranked in based on what your results were.
So they are ranked though. So wonder for me really is my top one.
Yes. Yep. Wonder and then discernment was your second.
Which is so interesting because you talked about wonder being this ability to ask questions and to look at all the different possibilities, this high level thinking.
Mhm.
And I joke, and I use this term and it usually dates me. And if you're not a Spinal Tap fan, then you won't get it. But it's like I love to take whatever it is to 11. And it doesn't matter if it only goes to 10. We're going to go to 11. We're going to go all the way. How far out can we think? My husband will tell me something that he thinks might be fun or an idea for something, and I will take it and just develop a 10-year plan, right? It's not even a plan, just like a what if, right? And that can be very frustrating for some people.
One thing that I'll read for you with your WD, which helps people, and so Working Genius, I'll mention one other part about the framework. It's 80% productivity and 20% personality, whereas some of the other assessments, which are amazing, I love, same to you. I have a whole document that lists all of my results from all the different ones, and all the tools are great and have a place for this. Working Genius is great in the workplace because it shows how you are wired to do work versus other tests are more personality driven.
Okay.
So when you put your two geniuses together, we call it a unique pairing. And that's what I was going to read of what the WD is. And so it kind of is like giving you a little personality snapshot. And so a WD or a DW, it's called the contemplative counselor. So this is you, Andrea. A thoughtful, insightful, and nuanced advisor, slow to declare certainty, but deep in wisdom, intuition, and rationale. And so does that resonate with you?
In my confident and better days, yes. That sounds like something that's very high and lofty. And I feel a little silly sometimes claiming something like that. But I tell you what, Charity, people have sat, like I share a lot. People used to come and sit in my office and say, where did all this wisdom come from? Like, I have no idea. And um, so, yeah, contemplative, yes, for sure. I think about things a lot. And I'm usually willing to say, unless I get caught in this whole idea that, no, I have to like get all the answers, I'm not caught in that, then I am really good at saying, well, what are two sides of the issue? Or how can we look at this from all the perspectives? And if you listen to my podcast, you'll hear those things come up a lot. Um, but I think it's interesting too to look at the wonder and the discernment because I'm really good at the ideas, but or at the high level thing. But you also talked about the second one, the invention being new ideas out of nothing.
Mhm.
Um, I, I don't actually know. I don't have in front of me my friend and podcast producer's actual widget. I know she's taken it, but it would not surprise me if invention was one of her top ones because what we'll do is we will sit down and I will go la 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 la, and just say, well, what if? And she'll just like spit out ideas, and then I'll go, ooh, not that one, this one, not that one, this one, you
Yeah,
know. And so together, we work really well that way. And I mean, that's how we came up with this particular series of podcast interviews. And so I like how that kind of works. If you look at the widget model, it looks like little gears and how they turn
exactly.
together.
And that's what's
Um,
beautiful when you use this with a team or other people, because if you think about it, when you're working your genius, that allows you to contribute to the team, but you only have two and there's six total. So it's
hmm,
you're able to jump in at two places and other people can jump in. And so you want to go through WIDGET in that order. And if you kind of get off track and you skip a genius, that's where things happen. Where if you skip the D, you're going to have ideas that haven't been fully vetted, or you
yeah.
skip the G, people don't know what's happening and why they're doing it and they're not excited. And so it's really important to follow and go through widget through each step in order and not
Mm.
start at E and then say, oh, okay, let's go back to W. But starting at W is how you work through the cycle and end in T.
So I want to put a pin in that. Let's walk through the rest of mine really quick so
Yeah,
people can hear what it sounds like. But then it sounds like you're describing how you work through a project.
exactly.
Okay, so let's work through a project as soon as so my genius, my top are W and D. So wonder and discernment, which means I'm at the beginning of the project, which means I'm the one who can come up with all these things. It's why I really work well with people, helping them ask questions. You and I have worked together specifically on core values. Do you mind talking about that just a little bit?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So wonder and discernment came in to play a lot as we did some coaching on your core values because I started asking you questions that had your eyes like hitting straight to the ceiling. Like, wait, what?
Yes, so I had a wonderful experience working with Andrea to do my core values, and it was a great part of 2023. I look back and say I'm so thankful that I invested in doing that. So tenacity is one of my geniuses. So I get like totally go in the weeds. So that's where I am always drawn to. And so Andrea helped me kind of lift my thinking up. And I also have discernment as one of my geniuses. So I remember us having back and forth conversation because both of us are kind of discerning and talking through it. But it was just so helpful to have someone else there. And again, with Andrea, with the wonder, the highest level thinking to kind of like pull me out of the weeds, pull me out of the tenacity zone and get my mind thinking. And so it was a beautiful experience.
Yeah, so that just shows kind of how the two of us work together. And because it was an alpha program where I was developing how I was going to do that coaching, you were really good feedback for me. It's like, this link doesn't work, this email doesn't work. It's like, oh, I didn't even do those things, right?
And so
So
with tenacity, I'm just drawn to the little things versus I probably gave you very tenacity like feedback versus giving you high level thinking.
but it was what I needed because I was trying to flesh it out.
Yeah.
So that's a good example for y'all. Working competencies
Mhm.
for me are the things that,
Invention and
yeah,
galvanizing. Yeah.
but they don't drain me 100%. The way you described tell us again what a competency, a genius gives you joy and gives you energy.
Uh-huh.
Competency uses it or
Competency is kind of you don't mind doing it, but if we ask you to just only work in your competency, you can get burned out because
yes.
you're not able to do things that truly fuel you. And so competencies is you can usually do it pretty well. And so it's work that you can do, but you're kind of missing out on doing the thing that you really love doing.
Well, and so the invention, the idea, I mean, coming up with ideas for people,
Yeah.
I can do that,
Yeah.
but I can only do it to a certain extent.
Yep.
The galvanizing piece, I can't believe it's not in a frustration.
Mhm.
What's interesting is that I used to call myself a professional encourager. And that galvanizing piece I can do for a little while, but I think that's what pushed me out of management is because I felt like I was constantly having to blow sunshine on people's
Yeah.
people's skirts or pants, because it's like I cannot be your cheerleader all day long. And I don't mind giving you information, but I can't rally. I need you to come up with your own energy. I can't rally you all the time. So I know I can do it, but it just wears me out. Is there a pairing, that IG pairing that you did like with the WD?
Yeah, so there's an IG pairing. So my one of my best friends is an IG, my brother is an IG. And so those are the people that are just so full of life. They're so fun to be around. And it's we need those people. We need them to get people excited. We need those new ideas. And that's what's again beautiful with this framework. It helps you appreciate maybe things that are your frustrations. They're other people's geniuses. Let them shine, let them jump in, bring them along. You don't have to do that work when you're in your frustration. And so
Yeah, and like I said, I can do that, and people say, "I love your energy," and it's like, I do 1 or 2 of these things a day, and it's like, I gotta go take a nap,
yeah.
right? It's like, I enjoy it, and I can be on, but I have to have my refueling. So this also gives me a little bit more information on how I manage my workflow through the day.
Hmm.
Like you said, put things in different energy spots, and I'm still as an entrepreneur, I'm still trying to figure out what some of those are.
Hmm.
So let's talk about working frustrations, the thing that I now have freedom from.
Yes. So enablement and tenacity. So enablement, what the assessment says is you aren't naturally gifted and don't derive energy and joy from providing others with encouragement and assistance for projects and tasks. You have your hand over your eyes right now.
And I'm gonna tell you, as a woman of faith, that's really hard to hear, that I do not naturally do that, because this is where assumptions, belief, and conditioning come in, because we are conditioned, especially in the faith community, that we are supposed to naturally be able to do these things for each other. I just had a conversation this morning, like I shared with you before we got on. I had a rough week. I was not feeling well, and I had a conversation on Marco Polo. I just was able to really share some things, and this other friend of mine was listening, and then she said, "It was just really hard for me not to, like, try to fix everything for you because I feel like I have to." And, I'm like, "No, no, no, no. This is our conditioning, and one of the reasons why I think it's hard for people to let go of their frustrations and not feel the guilt over that. I know other people are gifted at it. It doesn't mean I don't do it ever. It doesn't mean I don't actually try to turn the mirror on myself every once in a while and say, how can I help this person? Right. Because I have a vested interest in making sure that we help each other. Because that's a whole other assessment that shows that, that shows up in for me. But when it comes to, I can encourage you in the moment
Hmm.
and I can be there in the moment, I'm going to forget to do it later. Do you have people say, would you pray for me about this thing? Right. So this is another faith-based thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I used to say, absolutely, I will pray for you. And I tried to like keep a prayer journal and write things down and pray for people. And what I realized was if I didn't pray for them right then, I was never going to do it.
Hmm.
Right. And those are just things that having an assessment like this says, this, Andrea, is why you felt guilty about that stuff. This, Andrea, is why you need somebody else to actually take your podcast to production. This is why you need somebody else, or why you need to pray for people right then and then let it go. And not promise that you're going to continue to pray forever. You're going to promise whenever you think about it to
Yeah.
pray.
Yep.
And I think it gives me the ability to say, I can still be me. There's value in that. And this is the value that I bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, as I mentioned, the shed the guilt. We can't, the people say a lot of times you can't be all things to all people. It's similar. Like
No,
you have two things. You can just live in those geniuses and it's okay. The rest of it, find other people to help you or know that you have a limited energy level where you can do that work as needed, but to do it for 8 hours a day, that's just God didn't wire you that way.
no,
He
I
wired you to
just,
wonder and discern, and that's
I know.
okay.
And in a way that also that can bring encouragement, right? And I've learned to use my wonder as an encouraging piece rather than trying to be encouraging. Because when I sit down and I try to encourage somebody specifically about something, it doesn't quite work. But when I actually just bring wonder to the conversation, they
Mhm.
become encouraged.
Yeah,
So I think there's ways to look at it and to just be, it's just a little bit more ability to just be yourself that really matters. Um, but when you read something that says you aren't naturally gifted and don't derive energy and joy from pushing projects or tasks through the completion phase, like, nope, I do not. Like, let's start a new one every day.
And me, on the other hand, I tell people I'm only interested in getting involved if I know we're committed to doing this from start to finish. I'm not all about it if I know it's not going to be done to completion. I don't want to just try new things and let it not finish. So for someone with tenacity, we're really invested in the final end product.
Would you come and like tear the wallpaper out of my husband's bathroom that's from 1970? And because I've started it 7 years ago, and there's like little pieces on the floor and like little pieces hanging off.
Oh my goodness. Hey, talk about that. We could talk about that.
So let's bring this kind of together and talk about how, not the way I use it, but the way that you specifically talk with other people about using it both in their work and at home.
Mhm.
And what are the major pieces that that you want them to walk away with, understanding how using Working Genius will allow them and has allowed you to kind of stand tall, right? Like that. That's what this whole podcast is about, standing tall and owning who you are. How has Working Genius helped you and can help them do that?
Yeah. So, spoiler alert, I'm going to mention what my freebie is at this point because I think it's a perfect segue. And
Yes.
so, I would love any of the podcast listeners, you can email me and use the subject line stand tall and let me know, hey, I heard from you from the podcast. And what I will do is I will send you a link to take the Working Genius assessment and then offer a 60-minute complimentary, I call it a leader debrief. And so, that
Wow.
what I've found is the best way for people to really capture, people will read the book, listen to the podcast, but sitting down for 1 hour and just talking about the other person on the screen and
Mm.
just being introspective really helps open people's eyes, because I have so many people like, oh, I read the book, or I'm familiar, or I took the test, or they sent it to me at work. And after I meet with someone, they're like, okay, I really understand this now. It's so much clearer. I like to tell people I drink the Working Genius Kool-Aid, so that's just the world I live in. So I'm always talking with other Working Genius facilitators, other consultants. This is the world that we live in. So we just have so many layers of Working Genius to share with other people. And so that's how I like to introduce it to people, is have them take the assessment, and I send them little instructions in a video to take to have their mindset in the right place. And then take the assessment, we meet and go through it, and then they're like, this is wonderful. And the beautiful part about Working Genius is we have a team map component. So it's not just individual, but it ties in other people. And so I've even done couples debriefs several times with couples.
Mm.
So a husband and wife, and they both taken Working Genius, and we have their team map, and we see where they have lots of genius happening, or they have gaps, or where their frustrations are. And it helps them understand how things are happening in their home life, maybe why there's some turbulence.
I might need to take you up on your
Okay.
freebie because I've already done it and you and I have already worked together in a workshop, but we haven't done it with my husband. He's not keen on taking these tests. We'll have to see if he's willing to do it. Well, and if so, we'll maybe pop back in and kind of share a
Yeah.
little bit about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that is an amazing freebie, y'all. I don't think you know how valuable that really is. But do you do most of your work one-on-one, or do you do most of your work in like teams and corporations?
Yeah, so the one-on-one is just to usually introduce the leader to what the framework is. And once they go through it, they're like, oh, we got to do this with my team. And so what it normally looks like is it's a 3-month engagement. And I've learned through working with teams that, like, we just need 3 months to work through this. And so I work with the leader first, and we kind of get things set up. We do a half-day workshop where we can do that on Zoom or in person and bring the team together. And we define team as your core working group. So 8 to 12 people. And so we like to start with the leadership team at the top to make sure that there's buy-in from the very top, and work with that team. And then after the workshop, I meet with each of the attendees one on one, and I do a one on one meeting with them and make sure that they're comfortable, they understand the results, and how they can contribute to their team best using their geniuses and frustrations. And then also just asking questions as an outside person. People just open up sometimes differently and talk about what's happening in the workplace.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I then kind of package that up into a report and share with the leader to say, this is the team map, I've met with everyone, this is kind of the lay of the land, and also walk through some insights that I've heard from the team. And so when you look at your team map, sometimes you can quickly realize, like, uh-oh, we got some people in the wrong seat, if that's a familiar phrase for people, is you realize that, hey, we've kind of got the wrong type of tasks on this person's plate. And it could just be a seasonal thing, just based on where things are in the organization. And so just really trying to be, and we try to attack that head on in the workshops, because we don't want to dance around it. We want to affirm people and their geniuses and just kind of figure out how we can make things better at work, because we want everyone to come to work and be able to just engage at their highest level. And at the end, that'll help the company reach the results that they're going after.
So I said I was going to put a pin in walking through the project, and we didn't do that. So let's do that really quick
Okay,
before,
sure.
because I have that and then one more question for
Mhm.
you. So how would you, when you said you have to walk through all 6 of the steps in a
Yeah.
project, how do you do that?
Yeah. So I'll use an example for you, Andrea. So you might say, hey, in 2025, what is my marketing strategy going to look like? So I'll just toss it out, right? 2025, what's my marketing strategy? So we start with wonder, and just start. Wonder is all about asking questions. So you might say, okay, well, if we're going to talk about 2025, well, what happened in 2023 and 24, and what's some data? What are other people doing? What has been working? What's happening in, our in the economy, different things. So there's
Hmm.
just like all these questions that happen. You can capture all the questions. And then we take that and say, okay, the end of the day, we're trying to figure out what the marketing strategy is. So based on these questions, bring in, your inventor, the friend with invention, and be like, give me all your ideas now, let's go. And then they'll like shoot out all these ideas, capture all those. By the end of that conversation, they're likely going to be verbal processing and be like, oh yeah, even though I just gave you 20 things, the first 5 don't even like think, and so we kind of like, they say, okay, these are my best ones. And so we have their list of their best ideas. Then we move into discernment, where you would jump in and you're like, okay, we have these 10 ideas. The first one, this is just not ever going to happen. Number 2, there's too much risk here. Maybe idea 3 and 4. And you just kind of whittle it down and say, okay, at the end of the day, we came up with these 3 ideas that would be great for marketing. So we're going to try all these 3 initiatives for 2025. And at that point, galvanizing happens. And you would then explain to your team or whoever the work is going to go out to, and be like, okay, we're doing this because of this, and get them excited and explain the why and get everyone bought in. And okay, let's go. And then at that point, enablement and tenacity are going to happen. Enablement is just kind of like checking in. Does everyone have their assignment? Who's doing what? Do you have what you need? Are you equipped? And then tenacity happens of, okay, we have to have everything ready to launch marketing by, we decided on December 17th, to have everything locked and loaded. So are we on budget? Are we on plan? Did we do what we said we were going to do? We're like, oh, we only did the first 2. We totally forgot about the 3rd initiative. Where are we at? And so that's how you work through widget
Okay.
with any type of project.
So it's interesting. I can hear myself doing all of those pieces, and I don't know that I've ever put them in that order. So I think personally, just as a solopreneur, I think that will be very helpful as I walk away saying, okay, so some of my processes, if I walk through that, then I can pull in different people that can help me in different areas. Ooh, that was another really valuable piece. I'm glad we didn't forget to go back to that. So circling back to the very beginning, when you told us your journey,
Mhm.
so what is your working genius, and how has that made, like you said, you've discovered this love and you language for the passion that you already felt, and now you actually are doing this as in organizational health. So what is your working genius? We know tenacity is one of them. We've already talked about it. But how does that show up, and how does that inspire you and others to kind of stand tall?
Sure. So I am, tenacity is first and discernment is second. And so I'm called the judicious accomplisher. So, which is a reliable, prudent, and focused doer, a unique combination of practical urgency and intuitive judgment. And so the way that I use that in my work is, I'm just so like, I tell people I live life in the details. I love details. So I show up for workshops, and I just have thought of so many little details to try to make the experience special for people. I bring Working Genius cookies, or have gift boxes, or just, some, I just always want to have those little details to make people feel special. And that's part of the flair that I bring
Hmm.
when I work with other people. And I tie in my operations background, because again, with the tenacity, I'm like very ground detail level. When we talk high level and themes, come out, I'm very quickly able to map out what a plan would look like
Okay.
to make it happen. And so I'm able to also provide that support to my clients. We totally dive in on the people side, but then I'm there on the back end where I can help them get processes set up. How do we, just truly the minutia of the day to day to run an organization for the operations, I can help speak into that.
Have you seen others in your life inspired by your willingness to take these steps based on what you know about yourself?
I think people are inspired just seeing a woman out there that has taken a risk to start a business. And I tell people it was not on my radar at the age of 42 to be an entrepreneur.
Mm,
I always thought, oh, yeah, when I'm, later in life, I'll be a consultant, for whatever reason, even as a child, that was just an appealing thing to me.
interesting.
I didn't even fully know what that meant, but I remember my dad I would just always listen on road trips to my dad talk about work, and I would always ask him about like, well, who's what, and I would always want to understand the org chart as a kid. I don't know, how things worked, and he would tell me there's like some people that were consultants, and I was like, that sounds like a good gig, the consultant. So let me just file that for one day.
Cool.
And so women just are inspired to know that hey, you took a leap of faith and started a business. And so I think I just love to encourage other women and give them, as you said, help them to stand tall and know, hey, you have it inside of you. You can do
Mm. You do, and you're uniquely designed and you're uniquely made, and we need to celebrate the things that we do well and not feel guilty about the things that we don't, because almost every single time there's somebody in our circle that can step in, if it's on a
Yes.
team or in our family. Charity, this has been phenomenal. Exactly how should people get in touch with you? Other that you said email you with the subject line. So how do you want people to get in touch with you?
Sure. So my website is CharityMedina.com. So I'm sure it'll be in the show notes for people to grab, but CharityMedina.com. And there's a form on my website where you can send me a note. My email is also charity@CharityMedina.com. And so you can get in touch with me via email. And I'm a big Marco Polo person, as you mentioned as well. So if
Yes.
people like the Marco Polo, we can exchange digits and be Marco Polo friends too.
I love it. Thank you so much. I hope that lots of people take advantage of this because it is just so helpful. Have a great one. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.